High-level mixed martial arts. Plain and simple, no one, and I mean no one, should be facing Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight championship next if their name is not Movsar Evloev. Because he is now 20-0 as a professional mixed martial artist and 10-0 since joining the UFC in 2019, and he just came out of his first ever UFC main event victorious against the other #1 contender in this weight class and fellow undefeated fighter, Lerone Murphy. There is simply no justification in the aftermath of UFC London that anyone else should be facing Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight championship. And you may be coming to this video yelling at me through your screen, whoa, pause. This was a robbery. Movsar Evloev didn't even win this fight. And now listen, it's not a robbery, I don't think, because when you look at the fight by the numbers, it is razor thin, as Movsar Evloev decided to stand and trade with Lerone Murphy for essentially the entire 25 minutes outside of 4 minutes of control time that he did have, and 9 out of 10 successful takedowns landed, but that all came in the latter 2 rounds for the most part. In terms of significant strikes, Lerone Murphy would land 89 and Movsar would land 86, and when we look at the total strikes landed, Movsar would actually outland Lerone Murphy 124 to 89, and so he did what a lot of people did not think he could do, and that was compete tit for tat in the striking and kickboxing realm with the dangerous Lerone Murphy, and he came out the other side victorious. But now let's jump into those scorecards, because while Movsar did win, and I'm happy for him, and he should absolutely be the #1 contender, hands down, bar none, Movsar Evloev via decision was not how I ruled the fight, because I had Lerone Murphy winning rounds 1 and 2, albeit both of them were still very competitive and very closely contested, with round 3 being the swing round. That was the round that I felt was truly a toss-up more so than any other round in the fight. And then in rounds 4 and round 5, it was all Movsar Evloev. He took over in that fight and looked better than he had ever looked in his prior 9 UFC bouts, undeniably. However, in that 4th round, there would be a point deducted for Movsar Evloev because he would land a second groin strike to Lerone Murphy, and Mark Goddard did not let that go by the wayside and instead decided to discipline him, which I can give him credit for. I'm all for that. After one time, there should never be an instance, whether that's eye pokes, nut shots, or anything in between, where there isn't a point taken away. But once that happened in round number 4, being that I felt he was already down 2-1, he essentially, in my opinion, had to get a finish in the rest of that 4th round or in the 5th and final to come out as the victor. Otherwise, it was going to be a Lerone Murphy decision. And then we saw him do a very dominant round 5, and all of a sudden it was looking like we were on our way to a draw, because it would have been 2 10-9 scorecards for Lerone Murphy, 2 10-9 scorecards for Movsar Evloev, and then a 9-9 scorecard because of the point deduction in round 4. But instead, we would see Movsar Evloev win the majority decision, because there was one scorecard that had it 47-47 as a draw, and 2 scorecards that were 48-46 for Movsar. And so the 2 scorecards that had it for Movsar were identical. Round number 1 went to Movsar, round number 2 went to Lerone Murphy, round number 3 went to Movsar, and then of course rounds 4 and 5 also, but there was the point deduction. And the scorecard from Clemens Werner that had it a draw gave rounds 1 and 2 to Lerone Murphy, like I did, round 3 to Movsar, like I also would agree with, and 4 and 5. So if I was scoring this fight, I would be leaning on the side of that 3rd one, ultimately ruling this bout a 47-47. But regardless, had Lerone Murphy gotten the nod on the scorecards instead, then he should have been the one getting the title shot against Alexander Volkanovski. That is how fun and how good that this fight was. These two really displayed the highest level of martial arts in this featherweight division that it currently has right now, outside of the champion, Alexander Volkanovski. I don't see how you can look me in the eyes and tell me any different. Both of them were a combined 36-0 heading into this bout, a combined 18-0 in the UFC. One of those O's had to go, and it happened to be Lerone Murphy in his home country of England, but I don't doubt for a second that he can still bounce back, put together a couple more wins, and put himself right back into title contention. But the night does belong to Movsar Evloev, who again is 20-0 and 10-0 in the UFC, and the resume is far ahead of anyone else in this current division right now if we're talking people on win streaks. As he has beaten the undefeated Lerone Murphy, he has beaten the former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling, he has beaten Arnold Allen, a perennially top 15 and top 10 ranked featherweight, he has beaten Diego Lopez, a 2-time featherweight title challenger, and he has beaten Dan Ige, someone that lived in the top 15 of this division. And look, I get it, 10 UFC fights, 10 decisions, he doesn't finish anybody. Oh well, it's not like all of these fights are absolute snoozers. This fight was fun, his fight with Aljo was fun, his fight with Arnold Allen was fun, his fight with Diego was fun. He's not just going in there pulling his opponent down and laying on them and doing absolutely nothing. And hell, even if he was, he still deserves a title shot, because who goes on a 10-fight win streak and doesn't fight for gold? If we are watching a sport of mixed martial arts in the major organization of the UFC, then the people that don't deserve, because no one deserves anything, but the people that earn their shots at gold by winning fights is how the UFC should be matchmaking, and that is what should happen here. Movsar Evloev, Alexander Volkanovski in July, in August for the featherweight championship of the world, point blank period. And there's also no way that you could look me dead in the face and be serious when you say that you aren't intrigued between a bout of Alexander Volkanovski versus Movsar Evloev. Are you kidding me? Movsar is right in his prime right now at 32. Alexander Volkanovski is the greatest featherweight of all time that continues to prove that he can hang with anybody in this weight class, regardless of if they're an up-and-comer, someone who's been around forever, or someone right in the middle, which happens to be Movsar Evloev. And when you take into account that Alexander Volkanovski is calling to fight the winner of this, which is now Movsar Evloev, he is saying that he has done more than enough to earn this opportunity.
But that's one fight that I feel like I need that. An undefeated 20-0, number one contender, taking out all the guys. Like he's took out all the top guys, all of them. And it's quite clear.
Hell, even Lerone Murphy, in the aftermath of losing in his home country, even came on the mic and said,
"One thing I like to say, make sure Movsar Evloev gets the title shot. That man deserves it. He's next in line."
And with Alexander Volkanovski being the Swiss Army knife that he is, being truly elite everywhere that a fight can go, versus Movsar Evloev's elite grappling but ever so clear evolving skill set in the stand-up realm, that fight checks all of the boxes from an X's and O's perspective and from a storyline perspective, as Alexander Volkanovski, the surging veteran, looks to continue his dominance in this featherweight division and continue defending his belt for his second reign for the second time against someone in Movsar Evloev who literally has a perfect record, has never tasted defeat before. He's chasing gold for the first time. Alexander Volkanovski, you could argue, is chasing his perfect record and wants to become the first man to ever beat him. Come on, man. There is no way that you can sit here and tell me that that fight shouldn't be next. And I'm probably sounding like a broken record right now, but damn it, I don't care. So it's time to turn it over to you and join in on the discussion. What did you make of this performance from Movsar Evloev? How did you score this bout? Would it have been Lerone? Would it have been a draw, or would you have scored it for Movsar? And of course, what do you think is next? And if you say anything other than Alexander Volkanovski versus Movsar Evloev, I'm going to go absolutely insane. So sound off down below. And to be quite honest with you, the rest of the UFC London card was by no means great, but there are still some other things that we have to touch on before we head on out of here today. But the majority of this video and this recap belongs to that main event. What a fight, and so much to talk about in the aftermath. However, as we move into the rest of this fight card, we go to the featured bout where Michael Page won a decision over Sam Patterson. He holds on to his ranking in the welterweight division, and quite frankly, that's all I got to say, because it was the worst fight of 2026 and one of the worst fights that I've ever seen. Igor Barnowski out of Poland improved to 8-0 and holds on to his 100% finish rate with 6 knockouts and 2 submissions. He's only 27 years of age, and he absolutely decimated Austin Lane, and it only took 28 seconds. This man is the most fun fighter to watch in this light heavyweight division. Give him one more fighter. If he gets another first round knockout, please launch him into the light heavyweight rankings. This division isn't that deep. They need all that they can have in terms of help, and Iwo may just be that guy. As far as the other ranked matchup on the card, we saw Christian Leroy Duncan defeat Roman Dolidze, who was number 11 heading into this bout, and now CLD has won his last 4 fights in a row, with 2 of the 4 by way of knockout, and is overall 7-2 in the UFC, and his losses are to Gregory Rodriguez, a top 15 middleweight, and Armen Petrosian. And so Christian Leroy Duncan is one of the most fun fighters in this middleweight division, but it was unfortunate for him as Roman Dolidze wasn't the best dance partner in this one, and it kind of led to a relatively dull outing where he just had to fend off takedowns for most of the time. However, when CLD was able to have distance, he rained shots down on Roman Dolidze. It wasn't even close when it came to the striking, and Duncan is clearly one of the most elite level kickboxing strikers in this entire middleweight division. Come Tuesday, he's going to be close to that number 11 spot of Roman Dolidze, and I think he's 2 big wins away from a title shot, 3 at the most, and there are some very, very fun matchups that I think he can have at 185 pounds. And as for what could be next for CLD, my mind immediately went to Ranier de Ridder and Robert Whittaker, but both of them are apparently moving up to 205 pounds next, and they're number 8 and number 9 in the middleweight division. So that leaves me with two names. It's either the number 10 ranked former title challenger Jared Cannonier or the number 7 ranked Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. And what fight shouts off the page to me as a fight night main event and has a more fun potential outcome? It would be Christian Leroy Duncan versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, soon to be maybe number 12, number 11 versus number 7, needing a bounce back after his loss to Sean Strickland. Sign me up. Danny Silva spoiled the debut of the undefeated Curtis Campbell, and he did so with a second round knockout that took place just 31 seconds into that period, and he is now 3-1 in the UFC, and his only loss is to Kevin Vallejos, who is now the number 10 ranked featherweight in the world, so you could say that that's aging like a fine wine. And overall, Danny is 11-2. He's only 29 years old, so just now getting ready to enter his prime, and does have 6 knockouts to his name. He is definitely someone to keep our eyes on in the outside looking in a featherweight for sure. I gotta give a shout out to Mason Jones and Axel Sola, as they absolutely went to war. Undoubtedly the fight of the night, and probably the second best fight of the year outside of Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, and the best 3-round fight of the year, where Mason Jones would get knocked down early and then come back firing on all cylinders the remainder of the way, en route to a unanimous decision win. And he now is 3-0 since rejoining the UFC, and damn it, he's done enough. I've seen enough. Give him someone in the top 15 of 155 pounds. Call me crazy, but how about this? If Rafael Fiziev decides to stay at lightweight, he's coming off of a couple losses in a row, including a knockout in his most recent one to Mauricio Hufi. Give me that fight all day. Mason Jones, Rafael Fiziev. Oh my goodness, I think I just cooked. And lastly, 2 knockouts early on the night, as Brando Perisic would pick up his second consecutive knockout in the UFC. His debut was last September, and he did it with a first rounder, and now his second sophomore outing came with another first rounder, and that would be against Louis Sutherland, England's own. And Brando from Australia is now 6-1 and has never seen the judges' scorecards. He has 5 knockouts, 1 submission, and been submitted in his lone loss. He's 31 years old, and we need fun, we need excitement, we need finishers in the heavyweight division, so enter the Balkan Bear. And lastly, in the first fight of the night, England got off to a hot start as Chanel Dyer would pick up the victory, and not only was it a win, but it was a knockout in her debut appearance, as she would finish Ravina Oliveira in the second round. At just 24 years old, the Nightmare Chanel Dyer is 7-1 and has finished 5 of her 7 wins by way of knockout, and when you see her in there on the feet, you can tell that she has some very high level skills, much higher than a lot of the unranked women at 115 pounds, and for that reason alone, 1 or 2 more wins should absolutely earn her a crack into the top 15, or at least against a ranked opponent at a minimum. So that is it for the UFC London recap, and I want to get all of your thoughts, your takeaways, and everything in between down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Every single week, I recap the most meaningful results from every single card. I break down the biggest and best fights and storylines heading into each weekend, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can also join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as like the Facebook page Verbal Sparring MMA, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple, where every Monday and Friday podcast episodes release there. Have a great week, and I will see you all in the next video.